Channelnomics is podcast where we get to talk with our partners about the things that they do for the industry and for all of you. And one of the things that we are often asked about at Channelnomics is who does channel marketing best? And this is one of these areas that is really, really fascinating because channel marketing is an absolute necessity. Everybody says it, whether it's marketing into the partners or helping the partners market out to customers better. Everyone knows we need to do it, but it's always under-resourced, underappreciated, and nobody really knows what best really looks like. So we decided that we would bring our friend Heather K. Margolis of Channel Maven to come on to talk with everybody here about what's going on with channel marketing and how can we make it better, particularly in this dynamic and evolving market. So with that, welcome Heather Margolis.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Heather, let's get to the first thing here because Channel Maven is born again,
Yes.
so to speak, right? So I mean, bring us up to speed on this because this is like a rejuvenation of Channel Maven as an organization, as a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was such an amazing experience and opportunity with 360 Insights. And what it proved to me is that I really enjoy being an entrepreneur. And the CEO, who is also a serial entrepreneur, understood that and gave me the opportunity to roll. They kept the team and the agency. So like creative content, graphic designer stuff. They do a lot with video. That stayed within 360 Insights, but they gave me the consulting arm back. So I'm now Channel Maven, helping to, really align companies around their partnerships and channel marketing and enablement. I've also created a curriculum, which I'm super excited about. So if you have new employees who don't quite understand the channel, or you want a refresher, or you're a partnerships person who just inherited the channel, like you're CMO of a company and your board just said, okay, you need to spin up partnerships. That's what the curriculum is great for. And then I'm a ham. I love being on stage. So spinning up the keynote side of the business as well again.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I say this sincerely, is that Heather, you really are one of the best in the business, which is why I always enjoy our conversations. And for those of you that don't know, is that Channel Maven was acquired by 360 Insights a couple of years ago. Heather was head of marketing there during that period and decided to come back out again. And look, we're glad you did, because the world needs more Heather Margolis.
Thank you. I did feel a little bit like I just was not, I wasn't able to get out there as much. I wasn't talking to partners. I wasn't out on stage as much. And it's been about 6 months and I am having a blast.
That's great. Look, let's get into what we're here to talk about, because this is about channel marketing. As I said, it's one of these things that is always misunderstood and underappreciated, at least in my estimation.
Yes.
There's a truism out there, is that partners are terrible at marketing. Not all, that's a broad statement,
yes.
but many of them are. But marketing is now more important than ever, getting the right value proposition, the message out there. How would you describe the current state of channel marketing? What are people doing right, and what are they doing wrong?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. We say channel marketing too. We say partnership marketing too. We say ecosystem marketing. Whatever you're calling it, you really break it into two categories. It's you marketing to your partners. So just because they've been recruited and have signed a contract doesn't mean that they're leading with you all the time. So it's constantly staying top of mind with your partners and supporting them and telling them all of the amazing goings on at your organization. And then there's partner marketing, which to me means helping partners market out to others. And I think the things have shifted quite a bit. We're communicating to partners via Slack and Teams and all of these other resources, but the thesis is still the same, which is you need to think about their business and what they're challenged with, and make sure that as you're communicating to them, whether it's a webinar or your partner summit or a partner advisory board, however you are communicating out to your partners needs to take into account what they care about. It can't just be like launch this and launch that. I recently assessed organization's communications to their partner, and literally whether it was a LinkedIn post or a webinar or podcast or email, their company name was in the first sentence of everything. It wasn't like, I always talk about these prescriptive conversations. Are you struggling with itchy, dry eyes? Have you tried this in the past? It's the same thing. Are you struggling to keep your customers' mind share? Have you tried this in the past? Not about your company right away. Always talk about what's in it for them. Make sure you're aligning with them so they know that you understand their business. And that will never change.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to hear you say that, because one of the principles that Channelnomics was founded on. So, you focus on marketing, we focus on alignment and strategy and
Yeah,
intelligence. And one of the things that spurred me to start Channelnomics is that watching the vendors do exactly what you're saying, is that they push out this monolithic, monotone messaging, and they wonder why they get negative reactions from the partners. And I would go to them and say, it's because you weren't speaking to them.
right.
You spoke to one class of partner. You
You're
didn't.
speaking at them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you raise a good point though about the different tools though that vendors have at their disposal. I
Yeah.
am curious your perspective on this though, because I sometimes I think that we've over rotated on things like Slack. I wonder what's the real value return now around social, because it is so much, there's so much signal to noise out there.
Yeah.
But how is digital transformation changing the nature of channel marketing?
Yeah, I really feel like you need to take into account where your partners are already. So if your partners don't have Slack or aren't communicating with other companies via Slack, they're not going to use it for you. Same is true for Teams, same is true for LinkedIn, same is true for Instagram. Figure out where your partners are and where they're gathering information. And you can do that either by stalking them online to see where their accounts are, or you can do a survey. Like everyone should be doing an annual survey anyway. And that's one of the questions. How do you want to hear from us? Where do you want to find us? And really ensuring that your digital transformation isn't going too far ahead of them. We were talking about LinkedIn probably 20 years ago and trying to get partners on. They weren't ready. They're always 3 to 5 or 10 years behind a lot of things. So it's important to figure out where they are first. The other thing I would say is partners are getting more, I don't want to say marketing savvy. They at least now know that it's important. And they have things like MailChimp at the very least. They're figuring out how to communicate out using digital communication methods. And then also just ensure that you are giving them the resources they need as they need them. They don't need an HTML email anymore because nobody opens HTML emails. When I get an HTML email, I know that it's somebody trying to sell me something and it gets deleted. So give the partners those copy blocks, give them a through channel marketing automation tool that allows them to use AI to communicate out to their customers so that not every single email is identical. So just really figuring out what they need and where they are.
Yeah, I want to just come back to something you said about LinkedIn and 20 years ago and trying to get partners onto LinkedIn. I was one of the early adopters of LinkedIn, and back then I was a security guy, and I was berated by the
Yeah.
security pros for doing it. They're like, well, "Why are you giving up all your information?" I'm like going, "Look, everybody already knows my information. It's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean, this
Yeah.
isn't a secret, right? But I think that when you talk about understanding partners, this is a frustration point for me, because my team and we have to go. Well, we don't have to, but we go out and we like doing this, but we go out and we help vendors understand their ecosystems. We help them understand the different dynamics
Yeah.
with, and we help them design strategies and programs. And how little they actually know about their own partners is
Yes.
astounding, absolutely astounding.
And they
And
don't stop to ask all the time. Like, just ask. Just ask.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, there's a number of reasons for it, but it
Yeah.
does come back down to is that we do have tools now that allow us to see what partners are doing, to understand what they're doing. We also have a
Yes.
lot of data inflows coming back from partners and distributors about what's happening in their world. How important is it to capture that data and synthesize it into marketing strategy and marketing resources?
I mean, it depends if you want to be successful or not.
Oh, okay. There's something.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what.
I
Let me
just,
just take a note of that.
yeah, I just feel like you can keep throwing things against the wall and seeing if they stick, or you can actually look at the data, see what worked and what didn't, take into account other variables. So this is huge. And this is how my brain works. Like my pattern recognition is definitely one of my strong suits. So I had a client come to me and say, no one's logging into our portal anymore. Obviously, we don't have compelling content on it. Well, the content on it wouldn't dictate whether or not they log into it. Maybe they logged in, they found it that it wasn't very valuable and they never logged in again, but they just weren't getting the number of unique logins as they used to. Um, and looking at other variables, like we've had 40%, you would know the number better. What's the percentage of layoffs that we've had in the tech industry in the last 2 years?
It's not a percentage. It's more in the, it's literally in the hundreds of thousands worldwide.
Yeah.
There's a
So
lot
if
of
all those,
consolidation.
right, if all of those people no longer have jobs, they're not logging into your portal. So you have to think macro before you think micro and make sure that you're taking all of the variables into account, not just, we must not have compelling content. Like don't totally, throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. It's something that's important to look at all of the different aspects and all of the data. And if you don't see any trends, then keep running it because you might be wrong and you don't want to totally switch gears and find out that that was not actually what was happening.
I and again, I'm going to say something, and it's not to be dismissive or disrespectful of our friends in the PRM segment.
Yeah,
This
please
notion,
don't.
no, I mean, look, they do great work, they have great applications, but this notion that the partners are going to live in a portal, that's not
Yeah.
what they do. They will go to a portal when they need to. Not this. This is not the place where they're going to spend all of their time. So you have to identify the right sources of data as well, and not over index on one and under index on another.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always advise if you're doing a newsletter or you're doing an email, give enough information to make it enticing, but then push people back to your portal for all of the information because you don't want a competitor to get a hold of that newsletter and be able to register for your webinar. You want someone to hear how exciting the webinar is going to be and make them come back to the portal where they have single sign-on so that they're the only people that can register for that piece of content. But it really, all the metrics you're looking at are, as you say, not just the portal. It's email clicks, it's opens, it's how involved they are in your community overall, deal reg, and registration for things like webinars or events.
Coming back to this idea about where do partners live? I mean, and the vendors do, channel teams and channel organizations within the vendors. They do invest a lot in tools and applications and
Yeah.
systems to facilitate communications, facilitate information exchanges and whatnot. Um, what do you think about the notion of self-service
Yeah.
applications and particularly the new crop of those in marketing automation that are incorporating AI to create content, to create images, to create and distill value propositions? Do you find this to be a valuable evolution?
I do. I think, again, the partners tend to be a few years behind. So make sure that you're not moving too far ahead so that they get lost. I think the things to take into consideration, again, are you don't want to throw something at the partners and be like, look, this is a really cool widget. And they're like, okay, but I don't need a widget. So just ensure, again, survey your partners, make sure that they're getting what they need. There is some education that has to happen because I had partners 15 years ago, even 5 years ago, that were like, I don't need to use LinkedIn. That's not a sales tool. That's how you go get a job. And I'm an entrepreneur. And now they see the value in cultivating relationships on LinkedIn, getting to know people so that the communications are more targeted, and reaching out in multiple places. Somebody's in their email, they're super busy. You send them an email asking them to join an event, they're not going to even give it a second thought. But when they're on LinkedIn, they're more casual. Maybe they're just like sitting in the airport looking on their phone. They're more likely to say, oh, wait, I got an email on this. I'm going to go back to my email. So long way to say, figure out where your partners are, make sure you're not giving them something that they don't need.
Well, one of my favorite stories, and this is beginning to age a bit, but I remember having a conversation with a partner, and not just one partner, but I've had these conversations in different forms. But this came from a friend of mine, and we were talking about marketing, and I asked him, "So what are you doing with it?" And he's like, "Going, well, we tried it once, it didn't work." And then I go to another partner who is bullish on it,
Yeah.
to bullish on marketing, and in fact devoted more than half of his marketing budget to market into vendors themselves, to make them more aware about what they're doing, gain greater alignment.
Yeah.
But building that awareness, I mean, there's so few of those partners out there that can actually do that. And the vendors, oftentimes, they'll invest in materials, they'll invest in some services and some applications, but they don't feel a responsibility to educate. And
Uh-huh.
there's a bit of a pervasive fear there that if they educate a partner to do something, that it will benefit somebody else. How do you overcome, what do you say to a vendor that comes to you and says something like that? How do you overcome that trust factor?
I think it again depends on the type of partner, how many other technologies they sell. If a partner is, let's say, a systems integrator and they have hundreds of different technologies at their fingertips, you're not going to get that loyalty. You're not going to get that trust. It's much more transactional than if this is a partner who's a mom and pop shop or even, 50 employees and below. Then you need to build relationships in multiple places, right? You probably have a channel account manager who has that partner on text and takes them out for lunch and knows their kids' names. And then you have the channel marketing team that's communicating to them on a regular basis with the information that they want. Don't send a salesperson the tech specs on a new launch. Make sure you're communicating to the right role and the right partner type. And then just know their business. Make it obvious that you understand the challenges they're going through. Have a finance person come speak on a webinar to help those smaller companies figure out how to, best finance their business or sell their business, or, just really think about the things that are important to the different types of partners and how you communicate to them.
I think it's important also to talk about attribution. So I think that one of the go-to tools that vendors use is market development funds. They often misapply it in terms of what they think it's supposed to be used for, what it could be used for, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing for me is when they come to me and they say, well, how do we attribute an outcome to an investment? So we spent $1 here.
Yeah.
6 months later, there's a sales event or a revenue event. How do we know that dollar is tied to that event? And I'm like, well, that's a really hard question.
Yeah.
You don't. And they said, so we don't spend on MDF. I said, no, you have to spend on MDF because MDF becomes the catalyst for other things that will happen along the way. How do you advise on that attribution issue?
Yeah. That is, having just left a role as SVP of marketing, that's probably one of the most frustrating things that happens because, sales might be pinging someone for 6 months and nothing ever comes of it. And then marketing does one thing that totally flips them and they say, yes, actually, I want a demo. I want to hear more. I would attribute that to marketing. Sales didn't get the hand raise, right? But sales would say, oh, well, we've been nurturing them. We've been educating them for the last 6 months. So I think it's important to, when it comes to MDF, one, MDF is important. You need to change your MDF offerings to take into account this digital transformation. Events are important, sure, but also let your partners hire a social media agency or a social ad agency to be able to get more in the top of the funnel. And then the events are much more nurturing. Nobody's going to an event from a company they've never heard of. So you need to have been warming them up for 6 months. That's another thing. MDF a lot of times is just fill the funnel. So ensure that MDF does things throughout the funnel, filling the funnel, nurturing the funnel, and closing. Like, how can they use MDF to do something that's going to actually close the deal? And then back to your original question, MDF is so incredibly important if your partners are the right person. So the first thing I would say is educate your partner facing teams on all of the different ways partners should be doing sales and marketing. And I say them together because they are so intertwined now, especially when you take into account social selling on something like LinkedIn. Those partner facing teams all need to have the same education around how to get people in the funnel, nurture them, and then close them. And then the next step is figuring out who you are as a product. Like, are you 50% of an implementation? If that is the case, you should absolutely be giving your partners MDF and a lot of MDF because they're leading with you. If you're 1% of the implementation, you should just ride the coattails of your alliances. Make sure that your alliances sales teams know who you are, understand why your product works so well with their product, and that you can jump on their marketing. Can we sponsor your newsletter and have our logo there? Also going through distribution. If you are that, I don't want to say low on the totem pole, your product is important, but it's easy to change it out, and it's a lower cost than all of the other things they have to buy to make something work, then you should be going through distribution on a lot of things like MDF and marketing with.
I'm glad you said distribution, because I also think that the distribution is another one of those misunderstood and underutilized resources, particularly when it comes to this. I mean, there's a lot that vendors can do to defer either resources or even reach that they can't do on their own, whether it's in channel sales, channel marketing, channel enablement, distribution. There's a wealth of resources that can do all that on behalf of a vendor organization.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talked a bit about different applications, different types of marketing and communication mediums. What's not working? What's out there that look, from my perspective, webinars have been somewhat hit and miss for years now, yet we continue to do them. Social is getting more challenging. If you're not paying, then you're not getting anywhere. So what is it, what is working and what's not working?
That's such a loaded question. It depends on your product, right? As I said before, if you're a leading product and you're something that people are going to market with, and then there are other things that get added to the implementation, then you should be doing the traditional marketing things that we talk about, the webinars, the MDF support. What I would say is build an ecosystem, like figure out what solutions you go with, and then go to market as an ecosystem so that the partners are selling all of the solution together, but that the partners aren't getting 10 invites to 10 different webinars. They're getting an invite to one webinar that has 10 speakers on a panel who are bantering about a business outcome you're trying to reach or a problem you're trying to solve. So I have never done a webinar. Remember when we used to do webinars and it was just you talking with slides? Like one person with slides. No one ever does that anymore. And I'm so glad, because you need to be on a panel, bringing in lots of opinions, sharing your registration lists, right? Like if I just market to the people who already know me, I'm not getting new business that way. I'm getting new business by leveraging relationships with people who have an audience that doesn't know me. So by the way, everyone connect with me on LinkedIn. And Larry, if I pushed you to Larry, connect with him. If he pushed you to me, connect with me.
But by the way, we will have your LinkedIn link in our show notes so everybody can see it right there.
I love it. But I really think it's important to figure out how 1 + 1 can truly equal 3. And I talked yesterday actually to my good friend Anthony Graziano at D&H, and he said, everyone says do less with, I can do more with less. He said to me, I can do less with less. Like if you're spending less, you are going to get less. So figure out how, if you need to spend less, figure out how to partner with other companies so that you can pool funds and do something extraordinary. And then you're not just one other webinar that's out there. The other thing I would say is take one big piece of content, like a webinar or an ebook, and break it into micro content. So if a webinar becomes 4 blogs about the webinar pointing back to it, and then you slice the actual video to have snippets that you push out on social. And yeah, social has become a bit more paid play, unless you're doing the right things and following the LinkedIn algorithm, which says things like interact with other people on your account, post relevant content, get engagement. If I get 50 likes on a post, and I love when Zoom does that, if I get 50 likes on a post, I am going to, the next time I post, get the same audience. If I get 500 likes on a post, I'm going to get an audience outside of who my current network is.
Yeah, I think that it's important that people recognize is the ecosystem effect really does help amplify. But you're right, it really, like Heather and I, for everybody, who's never heard this before, Heather and I have had some drag out arguments over ecosystems over the past few years.
Yes.
I will concede, I surrendered. But it's only because my position was it was already there.
Yeah.
Columbus discovering an empty America. But I think what we lose sight of, though, is that the ecosystem, as you're describing it, bringing in complementary alliances that can pool resources, but also leveraging the ecosystem and recognizing that partners are out there. They're not working with just you. They're working with a dozen primary vendors, a couple of dozen secondary vendors. They have real influence too. And they have influence, even if they're not really marketing, they still have to be armed with knowledge to be able to influence customer consideration, which ultimately then leads into that funnel activity.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So, all right, channel budgets are under pressure, but they always are. So, and especially channel marketing budgets. And the thing I love is that everybody within a vendor, particularly within the channel organization, they look at the channel marketing budget as a slush fund.
Yes.
So what advice do you give to a channel marketer about where to park their limited dollars or euros?
I think the things that are important, first of all, figure out the low-hanging fruit that doesn't cost a lot. Like you communicating to your partners via newsletter or via LinkedIn doesn't cost a lot. I would say, again, if you are one of those solutions that is not like the largest part of the implementation, don't do a partner summit. Sponsor someone else's partner summit. As I said, ride the coattails of your alliances, your tech alliances. Go to other events that support you having a booth like Dreamforce, or align with who you should be aligning with, align with the larger portion of that implementation. And then cut where you can, but don't cut. I see a lot of organizations cutting people and expecting the same result. Like if you cut half your channel account managers and expect that the half that is left is going to support all the same partners, that's not the case. Maybe you need to clean up your partners and get rid of those that haven't really brought anything in the last couple of years. So I think it's more about being intelligent about where you're cutting and not expecting to get the same result. As Anthony Graziano says, I can do less with less.
And if anybody knows how to do channel marketing, it's Anthony Graziano.
Yes.
I mean, he is a dynamo.
Yes.
Look, I want to bring this back to you though, because Channel Maven is called Channel Maven for a reason. And I do believe that's a moniker that you've not only created, but you've earned. So what is it that Channel Maven is doing to help and overcome these marketing challenges? What's the recipe for you?
A lot of the consulting engagements we've had so far are really focusing on figure out who you are, figure out who your partners are and what's important to them, and then figure out the best way to communicate to them. Yes, it means you may have 5 different communication plans. If you work with SIs and you work with MSPs and you work with solution providers and you have your ISVs and your large tech alliances, yes, you have 5 different plans that you're focused on. But people are so used to being communicated to exactly the way they want. Like we all now know that our phones follow us around and know all the apps we have and know. So when something gets served up to us, it is exactly right for us. they want that in their business life too. So figuring out how to do that. I launched Channel Maven Fractional, which has an amazing bench of channel chiefs and channel marketers and channel enablement folks who just are ready to, embrace the gig economy and not be full-time anywhere, but have such amazing knowledge to share. So if someone needs like 10 hours a week of a channel chief and they can't afford a full-time channel chief, that's exactly what we're doing. And then also this curriculum that we're launching that has, we got knowledge from so many experts out there who are helping us develop this curriculum. It's delivered on demand. Somebody could watch it at 3 o'clock in the morning if they wanted to. And it's really just helping that next level come up. It's refreshing those of us that have been doing this for 20 years and maybe need to know what some of the trends are. And it's helping those, like I said, the CMO that was just told by the board that they need to spin up a channel or partnerships.
Yep. It's fantastic work you're doing, Heather. Look,
Thanks.
I've always been an admirer of yours. You've been a great friend and partner, and you really are taking it to the next level. And I think everybody. It's worth taking a look at the curriculum that Heather has put together. It's a work in progress for sure. For sure.
Yes.
I mean, something like
always
this.
We're going to keep adding.
Yeah. So, and also, I would be remiss if I did not share some of your other credentials, because. Well, okay, let's get the first and best one out of the way. Heather and I are both from Boston.
Yes, I love the pillow in the back.
Yeah, that's the remnants from my boat that is no more, but that's okay. But Heather is also chair of the Women's Leadership Council and is also deeply involved in the Channel Marketing Association, two great organizations. So,
Thank you.
Heather, it's great always talking with you. Thank you for coming on the network.
You as well. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you everyone for tuning in again to the Network Effect. We do this podcast so you can learn more about Channelnomics' partners and the things that they do for you as well. And if you're interested, please go check out our other podcasts, Changing Channels and In the Margins, both available on YouTube. And also check out all the great content we have at channelnomics.com. We have a wealth of research and best practices available for you to take advantage of. Until next time, I'm Larry Walsh.